Amelia Carter stood frozen in the middle of her parents' living room, her hands trembling as she stared at the letter from their lawyer. The paper felt heavy, heavier than it should. Her eyes moved over the words again and again, but they still didn't make sense. The deed to the house she had paid for, cared for and protected, had been signed over to her younger sister, Sophie. Her heart pounded. For a moment, everything around her went silent. The soft ticking of the wall clock, the hum of the refrigerator, even the faint sounds from outside, all disappeared. She could only hear her own uneven breathing. It couldn't be true. For years, ever since her father's stroke, Amelia had worked extra shifts, sometimes taking 2 jobs, to make sure the mortgage was paid. She skipped dinners, ignored her own dreams, and told herself it was all worth it, because this house was their home, her family's safe place. She thought of all the times her parents had smiled proudly at Sophie for being around, while she was the one wiring money from her small apartment every month. She never complained. She thought love meant giving without expecting anything back. The front door creaked open. Sophie walked in, her usual confident smile spread across her face. She tossed her keys on the table and noticed the letter in Amelia's hand. "Oh," Sophie said lightly, tilting her head. "So you saw it?" Amelia's voice shook. "You knew?" Sophie crossed her arms, her tone calm but cold. "Of course I knew. Mom and Dad thought it made sense. You always said you didn't care about the house, Amy." The words hit like a slap. Amelia's throat tightened. She remembered saying those exact words years ago, but only because she didn't want her parents to feel guilty about her paying the bills. She never meant she didn't care. Sophie smirked, as if the whole thing were just another casual decision. "You've got your own life now. I've been the one here with them." Amelia looked around the room. The old sofa her father loved, the family photos she had framed, the walls she had painted one summer when money was too tight to hire help. Everything in this house carried her touch, her hard work, her love, and now it was no longer hers. Her voice dropped to a whisper, almost too soft to hear. "I paid for this house," she said, eyes glistening with tears. "Every brick. Every night I skipped dinner to keep this place alive." Sophie looked away, pretending not to hear, but Amelia could feel something shift inside her. A mix of pain, anger, and clarity. For the first time in years, she saw the truth of it all. Her sacrifice had never been seen as love, only as duty. And standing there, with that letter trembling in her hands, Amelia realized this betrayal wasn't just about losing a house. It was about losing the place she thought she had in her family's heart. Amelia was only 25 when she started working 2 jobs to help her parents keep their home. During the day, she worked as a receptionist at a local insurance office, and at night, she served coffee at a small diner. She would come home after midnight, her feet aching, her clothes smelling of coffee and sweat, but she never complained. Every month, she sent money to her parents to cover the mortgage payment, telling herself that she was doing it for love. Her younger sister, Sophie, was different. Sophie had always been the wild one, full of charm, confidence, and big dreams. At 22, she announced that she was moving out to find herself. She traveled, partied, and posted smiling pictures online, while Amelia stayed behind, working late nights and paying bills. Their parents, Thomas and Linda Carter, loved both daughters, but it was clear they favored Sophie. "She just has a free spirit," their mother would say, smiling proudly whenever Sophie called. When Amelia called, it was usually to talk about bills, appointments, or her father's medication. She wasn't the fun one. She was the responsible one, the one everyone leaned on but rarely thanked. Over the years, Amelia gave up a lot. She stopped dating seriously because she didn't have time for relationships. She didn't take vacations because she couldn't afford to miss work. Her friends invited her to trips and weddings, but she always said no, always promising herself she would rest next year. That year never came. When her father had a stroke, things got harder. Hospital bills, therapy, medication, it all added up. Amelia quietly took on the burden. Sophie came home for a week, took a few photos holding their father's hand, and left again. Amelia stayed, managing everything. By the time Amelia turned 30, she had finally saved enough to rent her own small apartment. It wasn't much, just a cozy 1-bedroom space, but it was hers. Still, she kept sending money to her parents every month. They told her, "It's still your home, sweetheart," and she believed them. She thought she was building something together, a family's safety, a shared future. But now that illusion was gone. The house she paid for was no longer hers. It belonged to Sophie. The girl who had run away from responsibility was now the owner of everything Amelia had worked for. Amelia sat on the small couch in her apartment, staring at the same letter she had received days ago. Her hands trembled as she traced the printed words. Transfer of ownership. Her parents had never even mentioned it to her. She felt a deep ache in her chest, not just sadness, but confusion. Why would they do this? Why would they give everything to Sophie after everything she had done for them? Memories flashed through her mind. Her mother's proud smile whenever Sophie entered the room, her father's soft laughter when Sophie made jokes, the way they always excused her mistakes. She's young, they'd say. She'll grow up someday. But when Amelia made mistakes, they reminded her to act responsibly, because we depend on you. Amelia had carried that weight for years. It had shaped her entire life. She had built her world around their needs, believing that someday they would see her sacrifices, appreciate her, love her the same way they loved Sophie. Now she realized that day would never come. She got up, walked to her kitchen, and looked around her small, quiet space. No family photos, no laughter, no worms, just silence. A part of her wanted to call her parents, to demand answers. Another part of her was tired, too tired to fight for people who didn't fight for her. Still, something inside her wouldn't let go. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the simple truth that what happened wasn't fair. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. Sophie didn't mean to upset you, honey. You're doing well for yourself. Let her have this one thing. Amelia stared at the message, her hands tightening around the phone. Let her have this one thing? She wanted to scream. Sophie had everything. Their parents' attention, their love, their admiration. And now she had the house too. For the first time, Amelia began to question everything she had believed about family. She realized that her loyalty had come with a cost, her own happiness, her own freedom. As the sun set outside her window, Amelia sat in silence, staring at the fading light. She didn't know what to do next, confront them or stay quiet. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just about losing a house. It was about losing trust. And deep down Amelia knew, if she stayed silent again, she would lose herself too. Amelia drove to her parents' house with her heart pounding the whole way. She had spent the night reading the letter over and over, hoping there had been a mistake. But there wasn't. The house she had paid for, every bill, every repair, every mortgage payment, was now under Sophie's name. When she arrived, her mother, Linda, opened the door with a forced smile. Amy, sweetheart, you didn't have to come all the way here. We were going to call you. Amelia stepped inside. The living room looked the same, soft beige walls, the same old curtains, and the same family photos she had hung years ago. But now the space felt strange, like it no longer belonged to her. Mom, she began, her voice tight. I got the letter from the lawyer. You signed the house over to Sophie. Linda sighed, avoiding her eyes. Amelia, please don't take it the wrong way. Sophie needs it more than you do. Amelia frowned. Needs it more than me? Mom, I've been paying for this house since Dad got sick. Every month, from my own salary. I didn't do it for credit, but how could you give it away without even telling me? Before Linda could answer, Sophie walked in from the kitchen, holding a cup of coffee like she had been waiting for this moment. Amy, don't start, she said with a smirk. You're successful now. You have your own place. I'm the one still living here. Amelia turned toward her sister, anger mixing with disbelief. That's exactly the point, Sophie. You've been living here rent-free, while I've been paying for everything. Linda raised her hands, trying to calm them down. Amy, sweetheart, please understand. You've always been so responsible, so steady. Sophie's still trying to find her way. We just thought. Amelia's heart sank. You thought what, Mom? That because I'm stable, I don't deserve fairness. Her voice cracked, and tears filled her eyes. You're punishing me for being the one who showed up. Linda looked hurt but said nothing. The silence between them was thick, heavy. Then Sophie spoke, her tone cold and careless. Well, if it makes you feel better, it won't be mine for long anyway. I'm selling the place. Amelia froze. You're what? Sophie shrugged. Yeah. I'm moving abroad with Daniel. We're thinking of starting fresh. The money from the house will help us get settled. Amelia stared at her in shock. The room felt like it was spinning. "You're selling the house?" she whispered. "The house Dad built? The house I've kept running all these years?" Sophie rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. It's just a house." Amelia felt something inside her break, a small, final crack in her heart. Her parents stayed silent. Not one of them spoke up for her. Without another word, she grabbed her bag and walked out. She could hear her mother calling after her, but she didn't turn back. Outside, she sat in her car for a long time, hands gripping the steering wheel, tears blurring her vision. She couldn't drive yet, not while her chest felt like it was caving in. Finally, she opened her glove box and pulled out a small envelope she'd kept there for years. Inside were copies of old receipts, bank transfers, payment confirmations, all the proof of her sacrifices. Rent money, hospital bills, mortgage payments, everything she had done quietly, without complaint. She spread the papers on the passenger seat and stared at them through her tears. "I did everything right," she whispered. "I gave everything. And now they were taking it all away." For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the anger beneath the sadness. It wasn't just about money or a house. It was about being invisible, about never being seen, no matter how much she gave. Amelia wiped her tears, her breathing slowing. The pain was still there, but something else started to grow beside it, strength. She picked up the receipts, carefully putting them back in the envelope. This wasn't over. Not because she wanted revenge or riches, but because she deserved the truth to be known. That night, as she drove home, her reflection in the car window looked different. Tired, yes, but no longer helpless. Amelia Carter was done being the quiet, obedient daughter. For once, she wasn't going to stay silent. Amelia hired a lawyer the following week. His name was Jordan Matthews, a calm, thoughtful man in his 40s who listened carefully as she explained everything. She showed him the receipts, the bank transfers, and the letter from her parents' lawyer. Jordan didn't interrupt, he simply nodded and took notes. When she finished, her voice was shaking. "I don't want to hurt anyone," she said quietly. "I just want what's fair. I paid for that house." Jordan leaned back in his chair. "If you can prove that the payments came directly from your account, you may have a legal claim," he said. "But," he paused, his tone gentle, "family cases like this, they don't just cost money. They cost peace." Amelia nodded slowly. She already knew that. But after everything that had happened, peace was something she had already lost. Within a few days, the case became the talk of the family. Word spread fast. Cousins called, pretending to check in. But she could hear the judgment in their voices. "Are you really taking your own parents to court?" one aunt asked. "That's not right, Amy. It's just a house." Her parents stopped answering her calls. Her mother read her messages but never replied. Then came the worst part, Sophie's online posts. She shared vague quotes about toxic siblings and jealous people who can't let others be happy. She didn't mention Amelia's name, but everyone knew who she meant. Strangers and family friends began commenting things like, "Families shouldn't fight over money," and "Some people just can't be happy for others." Each post felt like another knife in Amelia's heart. She wanted to defend herself, to explain the truth, but she didn't. She refused to play Sophie's game. Still, the silence hurt. Her parents had chosen not to stand by her. Her sister had turned the whole world against her. And for the first time in her life, Amelia felt truly alone. Nights became longer. She'd come home from work, make herself a cup of tea, and just sit at the table staring at her phone, waiting for a message that never came. One evening, while she was sorting through old boxes for evidence, she found something unexpected. A small brown notebook with her father's handwriting on the cover. Her heart jumped. She hadn't seen it in years. She sat down and began reading. The first pages were from years ago, when her father was still healthy. He had written about family expenses, daily routines, and his thoughts about life. But as she turned the pages, the entries became more personal. "Amy sent money again today. She never complains. I don't know how she does it. Linda keeps praising Sophie for visiting, but I see how much Amy sacrifices. I feel guilty every time I deposit her transfer. She deserves better than our silence. Someday I'll make it right." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. Her father had known. He had seen her efforts. He had felt her love. He just never said it out loud. She held the journal against her chest and cried quietly. Not out of anger this time, but out of release. For years she had felt invisible, but in that moment, she realized she hadn't been completely unseen. The next morning, she met Jordan again. She handed him the journal. "My dad wrote this," she said softly. "He knew I was the one paying. He wanted to make it right." Jordan flipped through the pages, nodding. "This could help," he said. "It shows intent, that your father recognized your contribution." As the case moved forward, tension grew. Amelia avoided family gatherings. She stopped opening social media. Every day felt like a new wave of judgment. One afternoon, outside the courthouse, Sophie was waiting for her. She wore sunglasses and a smug smile. "Enjoying yourself?" she asked. "You're making Mom sick, you know. She cries every night because of you." Amelia took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I didn't start this, Sophie. I'm just standing up for myself." Sophie stepped closer, her voice sharp. "You'll lose them over this. You'll lose everything you have left." Amelia looked her straight in the eyes. "I already did," she said quietly. Sophie froze for a moment, caught off guard by the calm in Amelia's voice. Then she turned and walked away. Amelia stood there, feeling the wind brush her face. For the first time in months, she didn't feel powerless. She felt steady, strong. That night, when she got home, she placed her father's journal on her nightstand. It had become her reminder that truth was on her side, that her sacrifices had meaning, even if no one else acknowledged them. The days that followed were hard. There were meetings, documents, court filings, and moments of doubt. But every time Amelia felt herself slipping into guilt, she thought of her father's words. "She deserves better than our silence." She realized that this fight wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about her voice, a voice she had kept quiet for too long. And no matter how painful it became, Amelia knew she couldn't go back to being the woman who stayed silent just to keep the peace. This time, she was fighting not out of anger or greed, but for her own dignity, for her truth, for the part of her that had been overlooked for years. Court day arrived faster than Amelia expected. She woke up early, her stomach in knots, and stood in front of the mirror for a long time. She looked calm on the outside, but her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the folder of documents, bank statements, receipts, and her father's journal. Everything she had held inside for years was now written in those papers. When she entered the courtroom, her heart raced. Her mother sat beside Sophie, holding her hand tightly. Sophie looked confident, dressed neatly, pretending not to notice Amelia. Amelia sat beside her lawyer, Jordan Matthews, who gave her a reassuring nod. "Just tell the truth," he whispered. "That's all you need to do." When the judge called her name, Amelia stood. Her voice shook a little at first, but as she began speaking, something inside her steadied. She explained how she had paid the mortgage every month after her father's stroke, how she had covered the bills and repairs, and how she had never once asked for anything in return. Then she handed the judge her evidence, the direct payment records from her bank account, and her father's handwritten journal entries. Jordan read one of the entries aloud. "Amy sent money again today. I keep telling her to save for herself, but she says family comes first. I plan to put the house in her name one day. She's earned it." A quiet murmur spread through the courtroom. Linda's eyes filled with tears as she looked down, unable to meet Amelia's gaze. Sophie shifted in her seat, her confident smile fading. She whispered something to her lawyer, who frowned. Then the judge turned to Sophie. "Miss Carter, do you have anything to say about this evidence?" Sophie's face turned pale. She hesitated for a moment, then blurted out, "Dad was never going to do it. He said things like that all the time. I only told Mom what needed to be done." The judge frowned. "What do you mean by that?" Sophie's words came out fast, her voice breaking. "I told Mom that Amy didn't care about the house, that she wanted to move away. I was just trying to protect what was left of our family." Linda gasped. "You what?" Sophie panicked, realizing she had said too much. "Mom, you don't understand. Amy was never around. She just sent money. I handled things here. You were stressed. I did what I thought was best. But it was too late. The truth was out." Linda covered her face, crying quietly. The courtroom went silent except for the sound of her sobs. Amelia stood still, her heart aching but calm. After all these years, the truth had finally spoken for itself. The judge cleared his throat. Given the new information and evidence presented, I'm ordering a temporary hold on the property transfer until further review. The ownership status will remain pending. Jordan nodded respectfully. Thank you, Your Honor. Amelia exhaled slowly. It wasn't a final victory, but it was something, a chance for fairness. When the session ended, everyone began leaving the courtroom. Sophie walked out quickly, her face red with anger and shame. Amelia stayed behind to gather her documents. As she turned, she saw her mother standing near the bench, waiting for her. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Linda's eyes were swollen, her voice soft. I didn't know, Amy, she said. Sophie told me you didn't want the house. She said you didn't care about any of this. Amelia didn't reply. She didn't trust her voice. Linda stepped closer, tears running down her cheeks. I thought you didn't need us. You were always so strong, so independent. I didn't realize. Her voice broke. I didn't realize you needed love too. Those words hit Amelia harder than anything else that day. She had imagined hearing her mother say many things. An apology, an explanation, maybe even regret. But not this. Amelia nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. I did, Mom, she said quietly. I really did. Linda reached out as if to hold her hand, but Amelia gently stepped back, not out of anger, but out of peace. There were still wounds between them that time would need to heal. Outside the courthouse, the air felt cool and calm. The sky was gray, but for Amelia, it didn't feel heavy anymore. She stood on the steps, closing her eyes and taking a deep breath. She wasn't victorious yet. The house was still under review. The future was still uncertain. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She had spoken her truth. She had been heard. As she walked away, the sound of her footsteps echoed softly against the stone. And for the first time in a long time, each step felt like her own. Months later, the case was finally settled, quietly, without more fights or court hearings. Amelia didn't want revenge or to take the house back. She asked only for repayment of what she had spent over the years. Not to keep it, but to donate it to a charity for single mothers, just like her father once wrote in his journal. It was her way of honoring him and freeing herself. Sophie lost the house after the investigation proved Amelia's payments and her sister's lies. She moved to another city, away from the town where everyone once praised her. For the first time, Sophie had to stand on her own. Amelia didn't feel joy over it, just peace. A few weeks later, Amelia bought her own small home. It wasn't big, but it was bright, quiet, and truly hers. She painted the walls herself, planted flowers by the window, and framed one of her father's old journal pages, the one that said, "Amelia always keeps this family together." One morning her phone buzzed. It was a message from her mother. "Linda, can we meet for coffee?" Amelia hesitated before replying, then finally typed, "Sure, Mom." When they met, Linda looked older, tired, guilty, but softer. There were no long speeches, no apologies that could fix everything. Just two women sitting across a table, trying to start again. "I miss you," Linda whispered. Amelia smiled faintly. "I miss who we used to be." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. As Amelia walked home that evening, she looked up at the sky, feeling her father's presence. Not in the house she lost, but in the peace she finally found. Voiceover, gentle tone. "I used to think family meant giving without question. But now I know. Family means loving without losing yourself. Sometimes the greatest home you build is the one inside your heart." Amelia visits her old home one last time before the new owners move in. The yard is quiet. The garden she once planted with her father is overgrown, but the roses still bloom. She unlocks the door slowly and steps inside. The house is empty now. No laughter, no pictures, no memories on the walls. Just echoes. She walks through each room, remembering late nights working at the kitchen table, the smell of her mother's cooking, and her father's voice calling her name. In the living room, sunlight falls across the floor. Amelia runs her fingers along the wall and whispers softly, "You were never just a house. You were proof I loved them." For a moment, her eyes fill with tears, not of sadness, but release. The weight she carried for years finally feels lighter. She turns the key one last time, locks the door, and steps outside. The wind feels gentle against her face, like a quiet goodbye. Cut to Amelia standing in front of her new home. Smaller, but filled with warmth and light. A few boxes are still unpacked, but there's laughter inside her laughter. She looks around, smiling to herself. No parents, no guilt, no debts, just peace. Sometimes the things we build for others are meant to teach us how to finally build something for ourselves. Ibastis. Two Hearts, thank you so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more heart-touching dramas. See you in the next one. Bye. Waving hand.